we go. Okay. So diet, when you're planning a diet, think about whole foods, not just the store, but think about whole foods, things that don't have a barcode on them. When you're buying things like Doritos, things that are easy in their package, that's been through a process. And if you think about from the field where the corn and a Dorito was grown, things of that nature, even ice cream, candy bars, to the time you eat it, that is, who knows, at least 20 hours of process. So it's been in 20 hours or more of going through these factories, chemicals everywhere. The more you think about, the less you want to do it. So snacking, go towards fruit, bananas, we all know fruit. Just get fruit. Vegetables like carrots, sweet potatoes, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, you don't really need to worry about the carbohydrate content of them, which I'll get into in a minute. But something interesting about cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts are they have antiviral and antibacterial properties, but they also have anti-carcinogenic properties where they will remove cancer-causing molecules from your body. These cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, all that really fibrous stuff, it goes through your body and acts like little scrub brushes collecting carcinogens in your GI tract, and you actually excrete them out through urine. So it's extremely helpful to eat that stuff. And when you're drinking fruit juice, think about how unnatural that is. If you drink a glass of fruit juice this big, that's probably equivalent of, say, apple juice. That's like 8 apples. You're never really just going to chow down on 8 apples, and if you do, that's probably okay, but you won't do it all the time. But if every day you drink, especially children, drink a glass of apple juice that big, the concentration of fructose, I think there's 3 kinds of sugar. There's sucrose, glucose, and fructose. Fructose is the fruit sugar that's natural in fruits. It's not bad for you to have that, but if you concentrate like that, it can have toxic effects on the gut. And can affect the liver in a similar mechanism towards how alcohol can affect the liver, but alcohol isn't a sugar, so it's a bit complex. But it can damage the liver because of the high sugar content, although it's natural sugar. Meat usually gets a bad rap nowadays, especially red meat, and rightly so. A lot of the stuff you buy at the grocery store is not organic. It's not the highest quality you could eat. But it is true that red meat is the worst for you. If you're going to eat meat, you should probably eat chicken, fish. You can eat red meat, but go for leaner cuts. There's always going to be a fat content that's present, and that's okay. You don't need to worry about the fat as long as it's from a natural source. You're not chowing down on ice cream, unnatural sources of it. When you're dieting and shopping at the store, ask yourself, is this a natural way that the food is presented? How processed is this? And I don't go into it, but there's different tiers of it. One process, like applesauce, that's a bit processed, right? But it's not as processed as, an apple fritter, right? So think of that as on a spectrum. But 3.5 or more servings of red meat weekly is associated with increased risk of death. So you should probably avoid it. Do it once a week or maybe twice a week. Dairy and eggs are fine. Just get organic if you can. If you can't, it's okay. Just don't load it up with butter, nasty oils when you're cooking it. Just try to be natural and lean. And everyone worries about cholesterol in eggs, but the truth is people have been eating eggs for thousands of years, and it's not a problem. The cholesterol issue, it might be a problem if you don't pair diet with exercise. If you're pairing diet with exercise and you have no diseases, no abnormally high or low cholesterol levels, depending on the type, I'll get into cholesterol, you don't need to worry about cholesterol. Your doctor will tell you that if you feel bad, you get a checkup, they'll say, hey, this is out of whack, you need to do this. Then listen to your doctor. But other than that, you don't need to trip yourself out with fad diets wondering, I can't have any cholesterol. You're fine. Just pair it with exercise. All this stuff should be paired with exercise, and I'll get into exercise, but diet and exercise, 2 sides of one coin. Nuts can be good before bed. Far healthier than a nightcap of alcohol. You definitely want to go towards nuts or some kind of like fat content because it helps you stay asleep once you fall asleep. Oscar Mayer processed meat is really popular because it's really convenient. And the reason it's really convenient is because it can sit on that shelf and sit in that truck to get to you for months because of sodium nitrates. And it's a preservative that they put in there. And sodium nitrates are connected towards colon cancer, prostate cancer, and breast cancer. If you eat a lot of it. If you just eat it once when you go camping, it's not going to hurt you. You don't need to trip yourself out about this stuff, but if these become lifestyle patterns, you will suffer from some of this stuff, maybe. Your risk increases, right?
Don't forget gout.
And gout, yeah. If you pair red meat with alcohol, gout, which I think is the development of crystals.
There's a King of the Hill episode about it. We should all watch it.
Yeah.
Too much of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's painful. Don't do that. So when you're planning a diet, or you're just dieting, or you're at a restaurant, think about macronutrients, because micronutrients, there's too many to worry about. Just take a multivitamin to cover the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. Centrum daily for men, and I also have for women. Pretty good. I take that, and it's pretty solid profile of all the things. But with macronutrients, that's your fat, protein, and carbohydrate. And I'll get into carbs, and I'll try to tear apart the no-carb diets. But your carbs, you need to eat a lot of carbs, because that's energy. So 50% of your diet will come from carbs, 25% from protein, 25% from fat. And I'll get into that more in a minute. But also, what? Yeah, I'll get into that in a minute. Coffee drinkers have less depression and anxiety, which is interesting because a lot of people say, oh, I get really anxious when I take 6 shots of espresso. Well, that's 6 shots of espresso. So if you take 2 a day, I'm a graduate student. I think I probably drink way too much coffee. But it's interesting because you can understand how depression might be counteracted from caffeine. It's a stimulant. But stimulants tend to make anxiety worse. But depression and anxiety tend to correlate together, so it might just be some statistical thing. But it's interesting nonetheless. And when you're shopping, think about your purchases as a vote for what the company will bring you more of. Their statistical software will say, oh, we sold a lot of high sugar cereals this month. We're going to order more of that because they obviously want that. And if you remember years ago, I'm 27, so when I was a kid, there was no organic food really at Walmart or anywhere, and that's changed. Now people have demanded to have that. So whatever you buy, they'll get more of. If you buy more unhealthy things, they'll have more unhealthy things there for you to buy. So here's a carb comparison between broccoli and Doritos. And so obviously Doritos are far more unhealthy than broccoli. But when you look at the calories you got to take in to get the same carbohydrates from broccoli or Doritos, you have to take in basically twice the amount of calories when you eat Doritos than broccoli for the same amount of carbohydrates. Because carbohydrate is fuel for glucose in the brain and the body. And if you're working on studying all night and there's a vending machine that has Doritos in it, I've done it. It's not going to kill you to eat a bag of Doritos. But over time, if you're always going towards Doritos and not something healthier, you're going to be taking in twice the calories for the same amount of fuel, carbohydrates. So Doritos, it's about 1 to 9. Broccoli, it's 1 to 5. So twice the amount of calories for the same amount of carbs. Just think about that. And also fiber to stay full. Let's look how much fiber. I hope I'm not right. I didn't look at this yet. Yeah, there's way more fiber in broccoli than Doritos. So you'll stay full longer. It's healthier in general, but it's inconvenient. They don't sell broccoli in a vending machine, so it takes more planning, but you might live longer. If you slow down and plan, you might live longer. It's kind of counterintuitive, maybe. But
or even worse, like you might be healthier while you live longer as opposed to the alternative.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, and I'll get into health span versus lifespan, because you could live 100 years, but if only 20 of them were good in your first 20 years, then you end up being unhealthy, feeling bad. That's not a very long health span, you know. Okay, we're getting into my soapbox about carbs now. On keto, so the ketogenic diet and carnivore, and vegan to a lesser degree, pescatarian to a lesser degree, but carnivore and keto are really just fad diets. And they're not based in evidence. There's not much evidence of it, although I think there is evidence towards if you have a certain condition, maybe you go on these diets and they help you. But for normal people, you don't need to be going towards keto. If you want to lose weight and you want to look better, you need to just follow this advice and use diet and exercise, not just keto. You can't live a sedentary lifestyle and then just eat a certain way to look the way you want to look and to be strong, lean. Think about it as a lifestyle shift, not a diet shift, because yo-yo dieting is where 1 week I'm on keto, 1 week I'm on carnivore, but then for 3 months I'm just doing whatever the hell I want. And that's not good, because you're just going up and down. left and right. You don't really know what you're doing. You need consistency in lifestyle. And it's less psychologically stressful to just make a small change and keep turning the car towards this way or wherever you want to go instead of jerking the wheel every time you hear about a new fad diet. So ketogenic diet is no carbs or low carbs. I think it's actually just no carbs. That's bad because then you process ketones, which are fat, as the source of energy for the body, and that's not preferable to the brain or the body. Carnivore is only animal products. The worry there is low potassium, super low potassium, low fiber, and it's a bit unnatural because we're omnivorous creatures. Vegan, the worry there is ultra high processed sources of protein, like protein powders, and also maybe processed sources of carbohydrate and fats, and super high salt, because if you eat a lot of high processed stuff, like microwavable mac and cheese, there's a lot of fat and a lot of added salt in that as well. And also just the protein powders that you're eating, as a lot of vegans do, it's unnatural, it's more processed, and it could be hard on your stomach and your digestive tract. The best diet you could ever do is not ruled by any of these ideologies. It's really just varied moderation with as little processed food in general. You can eat red meat, not a lot of it, once or twice a week. You can eat anything you really want as long as it's natural and unprocessed and in moderation. And so salt and potassium are something that I think is really important to health. I've heard neurosurgeons talk about on podcasts. The guy I'm thinking about is named Dr. Gooby. The spinal columns of these patients he had were really rigid. A lot of blockage in the capillaries of small veins that were clogged with cholesterol because their diets and whatnot, and not enough potassium to help clear it, as I understand it. It's also a cholesterol and potassium thing. I don't know, but if your diet's bad, it will block you up. And then he saw people on carnivore diets, they had more injuries. They would not heal as well because they didn't have as much potassium to deliver nutrients to the body, which is what potassium does. And anyway, if you don't have enough potassium, you're going to get blocked up. It won't regulate your body enough. And high salt meat, if you eat a lot of carnivore stuff, you're going to be eating a lot of high salt stuff. It's just bad for you. But think of salt as a workout supplement because it's really there for regulating your neural firings, your brain functions. Salt is very important for that. But also sweating. If you're an athlete, you're going to need more salt than if you're not an athlete. But most of the time, evolutionarily, from the research I've done, we had a lot of potassium and a little bit of salt historically. But now we have a little bit of potassium and a whole lot of salt. And that's apparently really bad for us. So here's my favorite chart I found this year. And all-cause mortality and energy from carbohydrate intake. And if you see here, the lowest point on the y-axis is the hazard ratio for all-cause mortality, and the x-axis is energy from carbohydrate intake, right? The lowest hazard ratio is associated with 50% of your energy coming from carbohydrate, and the less carbohydrates you get, the higher your hazard ratio goes. And this is a pretty crude aggregation of symptoms because it's all-cause mortality, but it's interesting, you know? And if you go high carbohydrate, it's still higher than 50, but it's lower than no carbs. So if you go to 20% of your intake of energy comes from carbohydrates, you have the highest risk for all-cause mortality. So the argument that no carbs are good for you, it just doesn't really make any sense from the things I've seen. And when I tried to do keto, I felt awful, and you just don't have much energy. You really do feel brain fog when I did that. And I tried carnivore. I've been a vegan. I've been a pescatarian. I've done all that. Now I just do nothing. I just eat naturally, try to exercise all the time. Which brings us to exercise. Any questions about diet? Yeah.
Can you explain how exercise controls your cravings?
No. I'm a psychology major.
I think it's partially a blood sugar thing.
I think so.
Because it helps to regulate your blood sugar, and that will mess with how insulin or the signal.
And so you want fast carbs, you're craving it because you need that in your blood quickly, versus you're more stable. So you're okay.
I think it helps even all of that out, among other things.
I thought it might be something related, because bears are mammals and we're mammals. I thought are we like, if you're sedentary, are you like supposedly in winter mode and your body's craving, get as much energy in as you can? I don't know, but it does, I don't know. I'll try to find that. If you email me, I'll find something like that.
What exactly makes red meat so bad and makes white meat a little bit better?
I think the cholesterol and the fat content is higher, and there's saturated fats and trans fats, something like that. It's a molecular thing. I really don't know. Sorry.
My sister's a clinical dietitian, and something that's really cool is that if you look at grass-fed beef, a steak, it can have 1 gram of trans fat if it's grass-fed and 9 if it's corn-fed. So if you are going to, if you eat the grass-fed, it's like actually significantly better for your cholesterol.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
have to ask yourself, would a cow eat corn over grass in the wild?
Like, corn is his chocolate meat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is there any like benefits red meat has over white meat, like in any area?
I mean, it's really high protein. It might have a higher protein content per serving than chicken. So that's why I still incorporate red meat into my diet. But I don't buy steaks at HEB because it just looks gross. Don't buy it. I'll buy like frozen bison or venison if I've got some money to burn, you know. But yeah.
I've heard that for the like exercising and controlling cravings, that exercise can like lead to increased activity in your prefrontal cortex. And what helps to control cravings.
Approved.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Might be. There are certain, like exercise, like cardiovascular exercise certainly improves cognition. I've seen papers on that. So cognition's overall functioning of the brain. So totally, I could see that.
It makes you release brain neurotrophic factor within 20 minutes of just walking around. So
Yeah.
it's good for your body.
That's why you shouldn't have a motorized skateboard. You should walk to class. Okay, so exercise. There's 4 kinds of exercise. Flexibility, balance, load bearing, and cardiovascular exercise. Flexibility exercises are just stretching, and you'll burn calories doing that. People who have injuries can still exercise, they can stretch, and that can help their body. Balance is very important for predicting lifespan. And Brito et al. Found in a Brazilian study in 2014 that if you can stand up from sitting cross-legged, I'm just going to do it. So you can do this. You can sit there and do not use your hand. You can stand up like that. But I'm 27, so I hope I can do that. If you're 51, they did a study on 51 to 80-year-olds, and the people who could do that, who were 51 to 80, had a much higher chance. I just should have got it, but much higher chance to live past the next 6 years. And if you could not do that, you were more likely to die within the next 6 years. Something to do with that balance, protection of your joints, the hip muscles, stuff like that. Because if you break your hip, like I said earlier, your chances of dying go up when you're old. So something about protecting your body, joint health, everything. Yeah. The benefits of load-bearing exercises are really evident. When you lift weights, you're not only stressing the muscle, but the bone is being stressed to support the muscle. So when it's just like growing a muscle. If you're lifting a weight, you tear a little bit of the muscle fibers, you let them repair, they grow up back bigger. Same with bones. And did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So load bearing, I broke my arm when I was 17, and I used to lift a lot of weights, but now I can't lift as much.
Yeah.
Would it still benefit me would it still strengthen the bone?
Probably so, yeah. Yeah, but you might need, if it hurts, you need to maybe go to physical therapy for it.
I would physical therapy for like 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure you're not doing something so they can see an x-ray and they can really go, okay, here's the exercise you should do instead of just going there and cranking out curls, you know.
Would it increase healing is what I meant.
Probably so, stimulate blood flow, but you don't want to be lifting you don't want to be doing Arnold Schwarzenegger lifts when you have an injury. Even lifting 20 pounds, which is very light for me, but 5 pounds even, that's resistance. Any kind of resistance would stimulate blood flow. Yeah, and then releases some some bone hormone, which grows your bone. So, yeah. What's up?
I would just add into her thing, it's probably easier for you to like hit sand really hard or water really hard because it creates micro fractures and then it heals again, makes your bone slightly rather than breaking.
Try that.
Yeah, that's load-bearing exercises. And cardiovascular exercise like swimming, running, cycling, boxing. Your heart and your lungs are arguably the most important organs in your body aside from your brain, and we shouldn't pick which one's a favorite, just take them all. But your brain needs oxygen, your body needs oxygen. I need oxygen to run my mouth up here, right? But, your heart distributes the oxygen to your body, the lungs bring in the oxygen. If you don't do cardio, you're really just doing something wrong. I hate to be so final about that, but it's true. Because cardiovascular exercise increases cognition, increases overall health, and the biggest predictors of lifespan and health span are strength and cardiovascular fitness. There's something called VO2 max, which is your ability to take in oxygen. And the higher that is and the stronger you are, the more likely you are to have a longer health span and lifespan. And when you exercise, you're going to build confidence. It worked for me. I used to weigh 330 pounds when I was 18, and I lost it in a year. I don't know what happened, but it builds a lot of confidence when you get into the gym and you come out differently. So, when you measure health, there's not as many measures for health as there are for disease, because we usually take our health for granted, because historically we didn't really have to worry about obesity, diabetes, heart disease. We didn't really have to think about that stuff. The things that were killing us were a lot more obvious than the 3 beers you drink every night or the ice cream you eat every night. That actually was more likely to kill you now than an infectious disease, I believe. Yeah, with number one cause of death being heart disease. But anyway, the measures of health are a bit crude at this point. Like the BMI takes your weight in one sum. I weigh 245 pounds. That means it just goes, regardless of bone, muscle, or tissue density, it just puts it all into one and puts it over a fraction of me being 6'6". And then a guy like me still scores as obese on the BMI. And a football player who's in better shape than me, more muscular, that guy's going to be extremely obese, which is, it's a crude metric. If you're morbidly obese and you need to get down, you might use it, but it's really crude. Don't ever attach your self-worth to any measure, but especially the BMI. You don't want to go, oh, it says I'm obese. No, just look in the mirror. Are you healthy? Can you move around? Trust that more. Subcutaneous versus visceral fat is an important distinction, because visceral fat is the fat that's inside your rib cage. And the more of that you have, the more likely you are to have colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, colon, pancreatic, liver cancer, organ cancers. Your vital organs are in here, and the more fat around it, it's bad for you. Subcutaneous fat is the fat that's underneath your cheeks, right there. And that stuff you don't really have to worry about unless you become morbidly obese and you want to make a change. But subcutaneous fat, I don't believe, is connected towards any cancers, mainly that visceral fat. When it comes to obesity, I wrote a paper on BMI and obesity in my undergrad. And it's pretty evident now that it's nature and nurture. You can't blame yourself for being obese, but you also can't just blame your ancestors. It's twofold, because we have genetic profiles and we also have behavioral profiles. So both will go into it. And if you know someone who's struggling with this, it's best to go see a doctor about it. Don't only take care of it yourself. But also, I'll say the liquid calories we take in are a way that a lot of people take in more calories than they realize over months and months, years. Because if you go to Starbucks, it's not the 6 shots of espresso and a venti or Trente that's going to kill you. It's probably, if you do it your entire life, it's all those calories all the pumps of sugar, hazelnut, French vanilla, whatever you're getting. That's all sugar. It's really all it is. That's the reason it sells. That's the reason your mind goes, oh, I need that. It's a reward system you get into, and you can stack up calories through all those pumps of sugar over time, and that's bad for you.
Same calories as a meal, if you ever
Yeah.
get them.
Yeah, I think Dunkin' Donuts has one that's like this size, but it's 1,000 calories now, which is about half of the recommended 2,000 a day, which a guy like my size, I'm like around 2,800 a day. So you don't need to hold yourself to that 2,000 a day. Just know where you're at. You can kind of feel if you're eating too much. Playing a musical instrument is associated with improved maintenance of multi-domain cognitive ability into old age. what I've seen is the corpus callosum, which is the connector. I think you guys are covering the brain in brain and behavior, so you guys probably know about the corpus callosum. Your ability to go, they say switch left brain and right brain. I don't know how accurate that is, that idea of the left and right anymore. But the neural firing across the corpus callosum increases significantly when you play musical instruments. So your brain communicates multi-domain at a higher level. What's really interesting to me, and I'd like to research it sometime, especially if I go into neuroscience, is the religious experience, because it's mysterious. But having religious beliefs is a predictor of health. And it probably has something to do with having this blanket in the back of your mind going, well, no matter how this test today goes over, or this lecture I'm giving, you still believe in God, it's a nice blanket at least, right? And it's a cognitive protector. Being married is associated with a longer lifespan, and sleeping next to someone at night is associated with a longer lifespan.
What if they snore?
Don't punch him. No. Sleep apnea, yeah. I was going to go into sleep, but then this lecture started getting long, and I was like, so I'm not going to go into that. Yeah.
Wait, I've heard that being married only is associated with longer lives for men. For women, being unmarried is longer, better lives.
I don't know. I never heard that. If you find a source, would you email me? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
It makes sense.
I think that the research that did say that was mostly looking at men.
Was it men doing the research on men?
And since women can financially support themselves, that I think that having more control over your life probably is associated with longer life.
Probably so.
You're gonna have to separate the kind of marriage you're in, though.
True.
Exactly.
Yeah, whether we're talking about traditional sorts of,
Yes, or a partnership.
Yeah.
versus an actual partnership.
True.
You're married to your best friend. Everybody has a choice.
Exactly. Yeah. So, can the media you consume cause you harm? That's what I really want to get into with my research. But yes. Can the media you consume? Can you learn from media you consume? Yes. So you can take things from it. If you watch a lot of horror films, if all of your media you're consuming is negative, is violent, I wasn't able to find a source because this is really controversial research, but you can make the logical argument that it would influence your cognitive states and the things that you think about and the dreams you maybe have.
Be activating your fight or flight response
Yeah.
many times a day. It's never good.
Yeah. And there's something I've tried to find some research on, but no one's done it yet. Maybe I'll do it. Is I have some friends who love horror films, and they like to drink. And they like energy drinks. They will sit in front of a horror film or true crime while drinking Red Bull vodka. And I'm like, you are just pressing the gas and the brake. It's just, you're just burning the engine up doing that. That's my opinion, and it's strange to me.
I think you should look at middle-aged women and the murder shows.
Yeah.
Everyone I know is addicted to the murder shows.
And in COVID-19, I saw some research that said the drinking went up in that population too, with the murder shows. Yep.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah. So, which brings us to drugs and alcohol. Smoking cigarettes is terrible for you. You should not do it. Luckily, it's becoming less and less popular. I'm from Oklahoma, so are you.
Yes.
And you can still smoke in bars there. It's awful. It's awful. It's awful. You go in there, you're like, oh, I might go get a drink. You go, oh. You wake up the next morning, you smell like it. Yeah, there's not as many rules out there. But so vaping, so smoking is obvious. My grandpa smoked his whole life, died from it. If you smoke your whole life, you will probably die from that. Vaping is not understood. I just want to say that again. It is not understood. You could end up dying from it. It could be less dangerous than smoking. We really don't know. It could be affecting the brain differently than smoking cigarettes. There's about 500 years of evidence of what smoking tobacco does to you. We kind of know that. You know the risks of what you're doing. Okay, if you want to do it, whatever. But vaping, in one way, might even be dumber than smoking because you have no idea what it is. Burning a battery to vaporize a gel, basically is all that is. You really should not do that. Marijuana has therapeutic evidence, but obviously people smoke it a lot recreationally. It won't kill you if you try it one time. You don't need to panic about that, especially with this source here, saying that high THC exposure has led to psychosis and schizophrenia in young men. Don't worry, if you tried it one time, you're not going to get schizophrenia. But this high THC stuff, you have to wonder what that's doing to your brain. And if your brain is still developing, it's not good for you. And the older you get, the less cool it is to be around people who do these things. So, yeah. And,
Stoned elderly are really like, try your patience.
yeah, you go, yeah, you told me that last time I saw you. Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah. So, but there's therapeutic evidence, especially with seizures and epilepsy, but not smoking it. None of the therapeutic things come from smoking it. You might get therapeutic evidence, benefits from smoking it, but you could also get those same benefits probably from consuming it in a different modality. Illegal drugs have zero, well, marijuana is still illegal here, but I mean illicit drugs such as heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine, and prescription pill abuse, zero potential for therapy. And nowadays, you might even have an instant overdose on fentanyl exposure or pure exposure to cocaine or heroin, depending on your chemistry. Do not try these things. The risk outweighs any reward. If you're turning towards substance and you're going through a hard time, reach out to somebody instead of going towards substance. Try to reach out to somebody. Go out on a limb. Risk looking bad. Don't turn towards substance. Something exciting about psychedelics is that there's apparently a lot of potential for help in PTSD and trauma treatment. Something about how the experiences are, they simulate, if not mimic, the religious experience in some ways, and they are able to kind of rewire the brain in some ways with PTSD in veterans, and also there's similar findings in MDMA, ibogaine, and ketamine. And ketamine, I believe, is legal nationwide now. But there's some psilocybin research being done in Denver, Colorado now, because it's legal there. It's kind of exciting. But don't...
We have a guest speaker next week about that.
Do what?
We have a guest speaker next week about that.
Oh, in here? Oh, cool. I'm going to have to come up here. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, but don't do this stuff on the street. Alcohol. Binge drinking is described as 5+ drinks in a sitting for men, or 4+ drinks in a sitting for females, or in 2 hours, you drink that. I think of it as if your just aim is, I'm going there to get drunk, that's binge drinking. If you're not just socializing, your aim is to get an effect, that's binge drinking. Heavy alcohol use is defined as binge drinking, basically. If you're doing that, it's a heavy use of it because it's not just social. You're not just having 1 or 2, then going home. You're seeking that for a drug effect. 15 per week for men, 8 a week for women. And that's blood volume. That's all it is. It's not trying to be sexist. It's just blood volume. Alcohol misuse refers to the definition of misuse. Is it causing harm? It's just like misusing a pencil, a razor, a gun. It's everything. Just don't misuse alcohol if you can avoid it. And there is no regulation of American alcohol ingredients or how they make it. They don't have to tell you the ingredients of how they do it, but a study I found is that the GMO corn that is used in a lot of lagers, like by Anheuser-Busch, that means Bud Light, Budweiser, Miller Lite, Miller High Life, Miller Lite, stuff like that. Cheap beer you buy in 30 packs. That's brewed with GMO corn, which has pesticides and herbicides sprayed on it, and it's resistant to that. But the active ingredient in Roundup is called glyphosate. And that stays in the corn at a trace level and goes into the beer you're drinking. And that has been known to disrupt hormone regulation in humans.
Is that an acetylcholine syndrome?
You know, I don't know. Yeah, but it's scary. Kind of touched on this, but yeah, if you design your life to where most of your socializing revolves around smoking weed with friends, drinking with friends, smoking cigarettes, it's not healthy, and that'll become a crutch. That is a crutch. If you find yourself, I just want to socialize, but I don't want to drink, that's a crutch already, and fight that. You don't want to be doing that. Like I said, the older you get, the less cool it is to be that guy who says, oh, it's Monday, let's go drink. It's Monday, you know. It's not that cool.
Come on, Carl.
So Ma and Leah in 2022 found that when you drink, you eat a lot more unhealthy snacks. We've probably all been there if you're over 21, bar closes at 2, you go to In-N-Out. You're not going to pick the healthiest option. And the healthiest options are not open that late. And like my old man told me, nothing good happens after midnight. And that's often true. Increased intake of calories and sodium due to changes in appetite regulation from the presence of alcohol in your blood. You're really messing, like you said, with the blood sugar levels. Alcohol spikes your blood sugar, and then if you don't keep drinking, that's where you feel that crash, and you have to keep drinking to keep that feeling up. That's a blood sugar thing. Okay, that's all I've got on diet and exercise. Is there any questions about exercise or drugs and alcohol? No? So the thesis I'm working on, I'm actually happy I was able to show you guys this because yesterday I had a meeting with Dr. Howard where we came up with this. Before, I was just going to talk to you about ideas, but now I actually have a real concrete plan. So she studies social media and has collected data on this stuff already, which makes it kind of easy on me to just plan a study with her data. So Find My Friends is an application. I'm sure you guys know about it. I did not know about it because I don't share my location with anyone. But apparently it's common nowadays to share your location with your friends where you're just living your life, but they see where you're at. I knew Snapchat has that, and SnapMap has that.
I don't care for that.
I don't care for it either. The government already knows where I'm at all the time. I don't need that. Yeah, so that's Find My Friends. So people are sharing their location with everybody all hours of the day. This is 24/7. Some people do this. So it's okay to do it. I'm not saying anything about it, but that's what they do. That's the behavior. Another behavior is social support, or I guess it's not a behavior, but it's an experience. Social support is just how much social support do you have from friends, family, your feelings of that. Big Five personality. Raise your hand if you've heard about the Big Five personality. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so ocean, openness to experience. C, conscientiousness. E, extroversion. A, agreeableness. And N, neuroticism. 5 dimensions which pop up cross-culturally. You'll take behavioral measures of personality in many different cultures, and these 5 dimensions continue to pop up, so it's pretty valid based on the research. And then joy of missing out is not really the opposite of fear of missing out, FOMO, because I read a paper where they said this is not the opposite of it, and I think they meant statistically, it is actually not the exact opposite of fear of missing out. But I think it's okay to think of it kind of in a inverse way of fear of missing out, because joy of missing out is associated with kind of the opposite effects of fear of missing out. Fear of missing out is associated with, let me fast forward here. Fear of missing out, oh no, I don't have that paper here. Okay. It's associated with more depression, anxiety, stress, sleep disturbances, things of that nature. And joy of missing out is associated with the opposite of that. I don't know if I have the paper for that either. Nope. Okay. But just looking at the relationships of these, I want to see if sharing your location with all your friends all the time, does that increase feelings of social support? That minus means I think it probably doesn't. You probably think it does. Oh, I just want to see where you're at all the time so I can feel safe. I don't know what that even means. But we probably don't have more social support because it's superficial. It's not face-to-face communication. It's not a phone call. It's just weird voyeurism almost. You're watching people and they don't know you're watching them. It's quite strange. But I assume social support is correlated with joy of missing out, and experiencing joy of missing out is associated with more social support. And testing the relationship between JOMO and Find My Friends, people who use, I suspect it's negative, if you use Find My Friends less and people don't know where you're at and you know, no one knows where I'm at, I'm at peace, I'm just doing my own thing, you might have more joy of missing out, and vice versa. And then I just want to measure personality dimensions that might predict your propensity to share your location with your friends and your propensity to experience joy of missing out.
I think we should ask everyone, if they do share their location, does it make you feel more supported to know that someone knows where you are?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
My mom's a helicopter parent, so I don't share with her because she micromanages it. And I share with my friends because I date, and sometimes I'm going to Austin or like San Antonio to go on a date with a guy, and I'm like, hey, if you don't hear back from me for like 2 hours, please search for my body.
Yeah.
But also with my friends, I find that like it helps them kind of like, you know, like I'm a caller, like I'll call people up, and if like when you pull up on your text message, it shows you the location. If I see it's their job or they're like back home with their family, I won't call them up because I'm like, oh, they need the time to focus, or like they're with their family, so I won't call them up. And same thing with me, my friend was like, hey, I was gonna call you the other day, but I saw you were at home, I didn't want to bother you, but this came up in a later time. So like sometimes it'll help with like politeness, I guess.
It could be a natural evolution of socializing with technology as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I've also seen it weaponized.
Yeah.
That's where I see it.
What's up?
Yeah, the idea of having like a constant display of where I am on the map that anyone can like look at anytime terrifies me.
Yeah.
But if I'm like talking to my family and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be in Austin next few days, that feels good. That feels
Totally.
like support.
Totally. So maybe a certain amount of it is good, too much of it is bad, maybe.
When it's within their control, yeah.
Where?
I'm here.
Yeah.
For me, like, I also share with my family, but last year I shared with, like, my friends at the time, no longer friends. They would, like, we could all see each other's location, and, like, I'm kind of like a homebody. I just like being at home, but they would always be together, and I could always see it on the map. And every single time, even though I liked being home, I was like, wow. So that definitely decreased social support for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You could expect to see both. Yeah. What's up?
I'm kind of under the impression that personalities in perspective shift over time, kind of depending on the scenario and the context that you're in. It can kind of shift where you land on this.
Sure.
Like personally, I don't want anyone to know where I'm at. It's not your business.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
But then there's certain scenarios where like, okay, my sister's in Houston, and I want to make sure that she landed or flew out properly. I don't know. Some scenario where
Totally.
that might be specifically applicable.
Totally. And personality is dimensional in that way. So you change, stable over time, but certain situations you will go this way or that way on a different scale. Like right now, I'm being very extroverted. I'm being on stage, but I'm an extreme introvert usually. So I think I just have one more slide. Oh, some papers. I'll upload this stuff that you're interested in. It's just stuff relevant to my thesis. Because I think we're getting towards time, yeah. When you're dieting, don't try to plan where you don't just leave it up to impulse, because that's how you, speaking from experience, just going towards whatever's easiest and quickest, and you'll end up digging a hole. So don't do that. And really cook yourself, because I heard I think Andy Galpin, the guy I reference here, so I'll upload this to the Canvas page for some other continued learning, but Andy Galpin's a great guy to listen to. He said, you can probably cook anything you want. If you want French fries, if you cook it yourself, it's so difficult to do, you're not going to do that very often. If you just cook French fries or cook potato chips, you can eat that all you want, because the chances are you're going to go through that popping of grease everywhere every day. Very low that you're going to do that. So if you cook, anything you cook, you can eat, But not Crisco, not Cool Whip, you're not cooking that. If you made that yourself, maybe, but from scratch cooking. And keep in mind that the leading causes of death in this country are heart disease, stroke, and did I get into HDL? I'll upload it. HDL and LDL, different kinds of cholesterol. But lifestyle and poor diets contribute to the leading causes of death in this country. And it's increasing as wealth goes up in other countries. And just think about when you should stop using social media for the day. It shouldn't be every day. I mean, it is every day. It shouldn't be all day, every day. Yeah. Thank you, guys.